Good evening, everyone. Happy Saturday, and welcome to Bad Dog Comedy TV live on YouTube and the Universal Tales of our TITOS/TITAS, or UTOOT, part of the TAWA Comedy Festival. Now, please give it up in the chat for your host, Eric Tigley.
How's it going, everybody that's out there in the YouTube world right now? My name is Eric Tigley, and I'll be your host tonight for UTOOT, Universal Tales, as Sean just mentioned to you guys right now. I'm going to just let you guys in on a secret. I'm super nervous about this because I am not a comedian. I am a visual artist. I paint and I make things. And I just really want to thank all of you for being here. Just put up with this right now because I was able to talk to one of our key members here. Some members from our homies, the TITAS Collective. And we were talking about the TAWA Comedy Festival. And we were just wondering if there's something we could do together. And we just thought of something like this where we could do a night where we share our stories. Now, I have a specific short story that I want to share with all of you, but I'm not going to tell you about it just yet, because instead I gathered so many of my friends to come together and tell a little bit about their stories. And for those of you that don't know, if you want to get in on a secret, UTOOT means flatulence, okay? But that's not what we're doing right now. We're not talking about hot steamed air right now. We're going to tell you about our culture, our stories, who we are directly from us. Some of it might be legends. Some of it might be stories that are a bit overwhelming, but it's all going to be real. Okay. We're going to start off. We're going to kick things off really shortly. But first, I want to just welcome everybody that's here. I was actually going live to make sure you came on, and I got so nervous I had to put this down. But I would like to kick off the festivities first by recognizing a land acknowledgement. Okay, so for everybody, just please bear with it and just listen. So our land acknowledgement is this. So out of our deep respect for Indigenous peoples in Canada, we acknowledge that all Toronto properties are situated upon traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat peoples. We also acknowledge the land covered by Treaty 13 is held by the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. And we also recognize the contributions and enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people in Ontario and the rest of Canada. So thank you again for being here. We just want to make sure you guys are all here in family and positivity. And again, I can't thank you enough. My hands are shaking right now. I'm just going to treat this like a regular classroom because by trade, I'm a teacher. So second off now, I want to thank the Bad Dog Theater for letting us do this. The TITAS Collective, again, for letting us come together like this together for such an endearing and personal project that, I wanted to do. And yeah, let's just start things off. Let's hear some stories. So the first person that's going to come up to bat right now is a dear friend. She's also part of a writing collective that I'm a part of as well, called the Pluma Collective. And here's her book right over here. Okay. Aileen Santos. She's a writer and educator, much like myself. She has published under Two Wolves Press. She has published poetry, fiction, creative and nonfiction, all these literally journals that's distributed out Canada, US, UK. She's definitely a talent. Again, dear friend of mine. And I want to kick this off to start with Miss Aileen Santos. So please take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Eric. I just want to give a shout out to my mother-in-law, who this story is about. My mother-in-law never liked me. She loves me now, but I'm up here going to spill some chismes to you all, or how the young people like to call it, spill the tea. Growing up, my mother-in-law and my own parents thought I was wild. According to Clarissa Pinkola Estes, in her book, Women Who Run with Wolves, the archetype of the wild woman is said to be reputed as innately dangerous and ravenous, like a lobo or a wolf. Wild is barely tolerated, is to be tamed and controlled. Wild likes to venture into the unknown. So what was wild according to my parents and my mother-in-law? I rebelled in grade 10 by having a secret boyfriend. I like to listen to that bump and grind music by a certain artist we no longer need to mention. I snuck out of my house sometimes and got suspended in high school for fighting. I'm now a teacher in high school who talks about morals and values, but I digress. I met my husband when we were 13, but we only became friends. By grade 11, we were dating, and I had that resting bitch face that felt so natural for the perpetually angry teenager that lived inside me. Angry at what? Our poverty, the rampant sexism in my traditional patriarchal household, brothers who had no rules versus me, always on lockdown, not the COVID kind, but the always chaperone kind. At 17, I met my mother-in-law, my husband's whole family, and oh boy, was my mother-in-law not impressed by me. She cried when we went on our first trip together, got angry when he'd call me long distance. I had gone away for uni, and there'd be 2 pages back and front of 1-cent phone charges that would appear on the family phone bill each month. 1 cent, y'all. But it recorded just how many times he would call me. Anyway, after 10 years of dating, we got married. We had 2 kids and we're still happily married. Fast forward to last week when my mother-in-law was chilling at my house. I love stories, y'all. There is nothing better in life to me than just sitting around a bonfire and listening to someone's story. So I start asking my mother-in-law questions about her life, of when she came to Canada from the Philippines. My mother-in-law came to Canada in 1968. She was sponsored by a hospital with 3 other nurses from her town of Cavite. Her papers got delayed, so she was the last one to arrive while her roommate settled into that Canadian lifestyle. They told her, "Don't worry, we'll pick you up at the airport when you get here." Remember, there was no such thing as Facebook or the internet. To get a hold of someone, you'd have to make an expensive long distance call and scream into the telephone because the connection would be shoddy, and you might even sometimes get disconnected. So she finally arrives in Canada, a bright-eyed, expectant 20-year-old. When she lands, she's waiting at the airport, but none of her roommates had shown up. She goes to a payphone, dials the number of the house she would be sharing with the other 3 ladies, and when they pick up, she says, "I'm here, where are you guys?" Her apologetic roommates explained to her that their house and the hospital where they work is in Belleville, Ontario, over 2 hours away from Toronto International Airport. When they had told her a few months back that they would pick her up, they didn't know that they would be living that far away from the airport. They thought everything in Canada was close to each other. So they told my mother-in-law to get on a train. They explained to her where to catch it and which one to take to Belleville. Now listen, when I was 20 years old, I thought moving to Hamilton from Mississauga was adulting, 45 minutes away from my parents' house. My mother-in-law, in a new country, knowing only these 3 women, got on a train and got her ass to Belleville. At this point of the story, I asked her, "Were you scared? Did you miss home?" Without skipping a beat, she says, "Oh no, I was excited. Those years before I married your dad, we were 4 young girls. We had to share the expenses, so we split the bills." She hesitated, then added, "We used to buy a cigarette pack that we would split evenly, each of us taking our share. That's how I learned how to smoke," she says, laughing at the memory. "Also, I got engaged to your dad a few years later. You know, my parents, they liked him and arranged it from the Philippines." Hesitating again, as if unsure whether to disclose details of a past life, to open a portal to her kids she hadn't been intending to, she continued, "I had been dating a guy for 5 years when I left the Philippines, but my parents didn't like him, so they told him never to call on me again. I felt sorry for him, but you know, that's how it was back then. You listen to the elders. I'm hearing the story with my husband and his sister, and I wonder what they feel like, hearing about their mom's past life before they existed, a life where she smoked and drank and partied long before mortgages and kids and living in the suburbs." She goes on to tell us how, when she was already engaged, my father-in-law had already arrived in Canada. She flew home to the Philippines. While there, she had decided to call up her ex-boyfriend. And just like they do in the teleseries, she said, "I'm getting married. If you love me, meet me here. At this point, I look over at my husband and his sister. They are listening intently, and my husband says, "If you picked him, we wouldn't have been here." I ignore him, and I ask, "So what happened? Did he show up?" She says after a pause, "No, he didn't show up." And with tears in her eyes, she adds, "I don't regret marrying Dad. I loved him so much, and he treated me so good." My father-in-law passed away in 2015 after 40 years of marriage. And I know this. I know she loved him with all her heart. My husband is the exact replica of my father-in-law. Kind, gentle, generous, romantic. The type of person everyone just gets along with. There's silence after she shares this revelation. A silence filled with love and admiration for my father-in-law. Silence filled with memories of my mom smoking a ciggy in a miniskirt, wanting to go out dancing. I've seen the faded photos. Memories of young love, lost love, but also of losing the love of your life after raising kids and sharing a whole life together. At this point, I turn to my mother-in-law and say, "You didn't like me when you met me because you thought I was wild, but you're wild too. Your son married someone exactly like you." She smiled a knowing smile to herself, and I think I understood that smile. The smile that reminds me that all women have their secrets, that all women run wild in their own ways. They run toward and away, their souls on fire. They run like lobos, they run like wolves, not to be tamed or controlled, but to venture out into the woods, to smoke, to dance, to purge, in order for life to begin again. Thank you so much for listening.
Wow. This is the whole point of it all. I mean, there's so much that we get to know about our parents, you know, our friends and family. I mean, that's a story that's new to me. And I bet there's a bunch of you out there that definitely have their own stories to tell too. So I really don't want this to be the only time that we ever get a chance to do this again. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And I hope you and your mom-in-law are cool right now. And I hope you did it justice, because definitely, Tita, if you're out there, thank you so much. You did a good job. Aileen did good too, but Tita, you did a good job. So next up, guys, I'm quickly going back and forth. My safe space is drawing, so you might see me just draw something new that's here. But the next person that's up is so talented. And she is somebody that I've been friends with for a very long time. Even before our circles kind of got intertwined again, we knew each other because of our parents. They were friends with each other too. And she just so happened to be an extremely talented singer who, throughout my university age, I don't want to give up how old I am in case some of my students are out there right now. I'm 100. But she did so much, and she had such a powerful voice that she was definitely somebody that I wanted to hear some stories about too. So next up is a good friend. I know her as Rhian. Her name is Cyprienne Colis, and she's going to tell you a story right now about something in her life. So please take it away, Rhian. I'll see you all in a bit.
As a first-generation Filipino Canadian, I think it's part of our immersion experience to have heard stories from our elders about anything related to being back home. And in my family, particularly my mom's side, there's a treasure trove of folklore about monsters. And I'm not talking about Momo. We all know that guy. It was only until I had a firsthand experience of my own with one of these mythical creatures that those stories would hold more meaning to me in my adolescence. And so the story goes, when I was about 9 years old, I visited the Philippines with my family. and my mom's 8 brothers and sisters for a family reunion. And there were so many of us that we had to be carted around in a jeepney, visiting the local schools and churches and so on. On this day, it was dusk. And as we were loading up onto the jeepney to leave one of these sites, I took my seat and I had a straight view right out the window when I saw someone sitting high up in the mango trees that lined the property. He was sort of sickly looking, pale, long, lanky limbs, just sitting there, staring stoically. I made direct eye contact with him, and I'll never forget it, but no one else seemed to notice. And I was in a little bit of shock. And then, we're leaving shortly thereafter. Our jeepney breaks down. We all got to get out and push it up the mountainside. So I got distracted and I forgot all about him until I got older. And I'm sitting around talking with my titas and my mom about these kinds of stories. And I remembered that moment and I described it to everyone. And my mom says, "Oh, so you saw Capre." I had called him Mango Man in my mind up until that moment. So I had to Google Capre. And lo and behold, the images that came up in my search were all drawn depictions of him, and they were exactly the same man that I saw. And I have lots of other stories about my aunts as kids, playing with the good duende, which are basically these dwarf spirits, and having run-ins with the evil ones who are territorial and put curses on people who occupy their land without giving them an offering of some sort. I've heard stories about an aswang, which is this vampire shape-shifting creature that would eat people. Totally scary, but very real in the minds of my titas. So take it for what you will, but I believe, and as creepy as it is, it's very much a part of all our culture. Highly superstitious and faith-based, yes, but just about as Aklanon and Filipino as it gets.
Thank you, Rhian. Oh my God. Like, we all have the stories of some supernatural thing happening to us. And I just want to thank you for sharing that. I hope that doesn't bring it back here. We're pretty far away, right? I mean, we're all the way in Canada right now. So hopefully tonight you're not looking underneath your bed and then find a guy eating mangoes underneath there too. If you do, could be endearing. I don't know. All right, guys. So the next person that's going to talk about right now is somebody super dear to me because we share a lot of things. We share an interest in geek culture, in comic books, and we also share a last name, like that segue. It is my cousin Will, all the way from Calgary. Now, it was very important for me to get him because he has a big role in the community in Calgary. He is a professional communicator. I was trying to think of the word. Okay. And he's been a leader with Mabuhay Calgary, which is the city's longest running source of Filipino news. And he also is one of the organizers and he participates a lot with Fiesta Filipino that's there. So chances are, if you're catching us all the way on the west side of Canada, not Vancouver, but the next province over, you probably have seen my cousin Will before. So definitely want to thank him for sharing some of our family secrets. And yeah, next up is my cousin Will.
Thanks, Eric. And thanks for having me on here. Leave it to the guy from Calgary because everything else has been so profound for now. I'm about to drag it through the mud. Let's give some family gossip and some secrets out here. What I want to talk about is technology. My role as a communicator, I rely on it a lot, so my family relies on me. And technology, I have to say, is amazing. Right now, I'm participating in an event from across the country where before the pandemic, I probably couldn't even be invited to this. But now with the situation as it is, it's fantastic that I can participate. And this right here, this is the TITO experience that I wanted to talk about. It's technology as a learning curve. And luckily, I'm not on mute or I hope I'm not. No one has said anything yet, so I'm going to assume that I'm not. But I wouldn't be surprised if I was, because really, I am one generation away from the screen being pointed away from my face and pointed to my forehead or up my nose. Because let's admit it, we've all experienced that in these last few months, right? We've been talking to family on a video call on their phones, and we've been guiding them to look at the screen. But that's a pandemic. This is only emphasized and enhanced how much our titas and titas have relied on their kids to be tech support. How do I set up Zoom? Why is this not Google? Tita uses Teams. I want to talk to her on Teams. Like, admit it, we were dealing with tech support well before this pandemic. And the thing about titos and titas is that when it comes to technology, particularly online, it comes to two extremes. Either one, they're way too paranoid to do anything on the computer, which is great. Treat the internet like it's a demon, and the less you do on it, the less I have to worry. But it does suck because then they expect us to do everything. Like your titas post on Facebook, buy the Chanel-S on Amazon, post this racist tweet. It's a pain, except for the Twitter posting because, well, that can be pretty funny. And yeah, Eric, what? I'm a good nephew, I'll do that. So the fear of the internet is definitely there. But on the other hand, it can go on the other way, where our titos and titas treat it like it's the Wild West, where anything goes, and each link, every little bit of clickbait is a brand new adventure. And who has to clean it up? Me, us. We have to clean it up. And particularly in my experience, this always happens around a Manny Pacquiao fight. They go searching for free streams on their desktop computers, and they click on God knows what. So now there's all these apps and pop-ups everywhere. And I didn't even know you can still get pop-ups on a desktop. But here I am closing down like 50 pop-ups, which I apparently have to keep them off permanently, which is impossible to do. But it's all because they just want to watch the fight for free. I get it. You're too proud to pay for pay-per-view. You can afford it, but you're Filipino, so it's free or nothing, right? Is it worth it? Well, not to me, but for you guys, yeah, if you can find the right thing, you're good to go. And they will search. They'll do whatever they can to find anything like that. And whether it's the computers or other technology, it translates to like things like their iPads. And let me tell you, the best thing you can actually teach your titos and titas is to learn how to close a browser window. Otherwise, you're going to open it and you're going to help close them down, and you're going to be like, whoa, that's a lot of open tabs on this thing. And then you're going to start closing them down. And then you're going to be like, whoa, that's a lot of bomba. And no one wants to know what our family is looking up when they are alone. But secretly we do. Because you know why? You know I'm going to take that and I'm going to go to the cousins and I'm going to show them what they found. Hey, Junjun. Bomba. Damn, look what Tito's into. Trust me, teach them to close windows and apps. It's easy. Swipe up. It's like flicking your kids in the forehead, but on a screen. I think the peak Tito tech support experience for me has been recovering passwords. I was called in because a Tito had been locked out of their email account. They couldn't tell me why. All I was given was that they were locked out. But now I'm apparently Batman trying to figure out what this big mystery is. So I go through this lengthy process of recovering the account. And if you know, you know. If you don't, pray it never happens. Like, get your rosaries and pray that it never happens, because it's not an enjoyable way to spend the weekend. Eventually, I get access, and I'm sleuthing into what happened throughout the emails. And it turns out, you know what, it's not even a mystery, because it's within the first message that I open up. What happened is it's because, and it's funny because they adamantly insist, like Tito insist, like I'm always right insist, that it wasn't them. But it was. What happened was that there was a scam email that came in and they responded to it. It was one of those fake ones saying you need to verify your account on Google, on Hotmail, GeoCities, whatever. They needed your password, they needed your birth date, all of that stuff. And so generally my Titos are smart, because they can sense when something's up. But looking at this crime-solving email that they sent was like a punch to the face. It went like this. Dear sir, pleasant enough. This is a very unusual request. Yeah, you're right. It is a really unusual request. I have my suspicions that this isn't a real email. Good instincts. I like where this is going. However, I trust that you can resolve this problem. Here is my password and other info. No, why did you do that? Why did you just ruin my weekend when your instincts were just on point? Like, it baffles my mind that you were able to do that after everything we tell you not to do, after everything you've seen your friends do, and that it's happened to other like TITOS and TITAS that you know. But it's insane. It went out, and I was kicking myself the whole time I was resolving it. But it just got me to look at like this whole note and how they actually responded. What got to me was how formal this note was. It was so official. Like it was so pleasant, it was so polite, and the best way was how they ended this message. I'm really sorry for any inconvenience this may have caused. Why are you sorry? I bet you're sorry now, but why are you sorry? It's just such a pleasant Filipino thing to say. And you know what? I can't help but be proud of it because yeah, it is Filipino. It's gracious, it's service-oriented. And really, tell me that it's also not one of the most Canadian things as well. So I have to be proud. My family is integrating into Canadian culture. Thanks very much, everyone. That's my story. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Will. That was awesome. Thank you so much again, man. To any of our titos or titas that are out there right now, this is why I block you on social media. Just because of exactly what Will just said. You never know what's going to pop up. We share family, so I can only imagine, you might be thinking of your family right now, but considering that we share family, now I'm just like a bit frazzled by that story. So great. Awesome. So much. Thank you. So next up is another dear friend of mine from here in Toronto. She does so much in the city, and I had to ask her to share a story. And plus, I always would bother her with whatever project she's doing, and she knows that too. Now, the next up to talk right now is Rechie Valdez. She's a self-taught baker. She's an entrepreneur, whose cakes have been published in the 2017 national edition of Bride and Groom print magazine and a whole bunch of other online magazines there too. She's a co-founder. She co-founded an innovative Filipino fusion line of traditional pastries. And you might have had them before. They're at TNT. They're at Seafood City, nationwide. And she also spearheaded a nonprofit national basketball festival that raises proceeds for sick kids and the Sick Kids Hospital Foundation. Sorry, Rechie, you do so much that it really twists my tongue because she's so awesome that I definitely want to hear a story from her too. So Rechie, please share what story you have to share with us.
Hi everyone, this is Rechie Valdez here. Before I get started with my story, I just want to say thank you to Eric for inviting me to participate in this amazing TAWA Comedy Festival. A special thanks goes to the ladies at the TITA Collective, as well as Bad Dog Comedy TV. Thank you so much for this opportunity in celebration of Filipino Heritage Month. For those of you that don't know me, I am a creative entrepreneur and mother of two. And I'm also a baker and love to bake. So the story I wanted to share with you is a story about my mom and my relationship with my mom. She had a very specific way that she wanted me to be right from the start. I don't think she expected it, but she'd always wanted to have a girl, and out came not just a girl, but someone who was a tomboy and was rambunctious and hated wearing dresses. And it really caused such a strain on my relationship with her. I felt like I always had to conform to her standard. She was always constantly reminding me of how to dress, how to look, how to behave, how to do anything. And it always made me feel like I was so restricted and I couldn't really live the way that I wanted. So that started from when I was really, really young, all the way up to being a teenager. And it was suffocating. Um, I rebelled a lot at the time as a result of the way that she treated me. And she would constantly run after me with chinelas. And she always had a favorite move where she was like a crab, you know, she'd pick like the most vulnerable spot in my arm, like take it and twist it. And it killed, by the way. But yeah, like it was really difficult living under her roof and all of her rules and all of her restrictions. Although she means well, like growing up was definitely very, very difficult for me. So, you know, as I grew up, I worked in corporate for a number of years. And then eventually I discovered my creative side again by the time I got to maybe about 5 years ago. I was baking for my kids and I happened to fall in love with baking and I enveloped myself in baking. I'm a self-taught baker. I own multiple businesses related to baking. And for me, it's sort of like my way of expressing myself and it's my form of art. And the reason why I'm sharing this story with you is because as much as I have this really difficult relationship with my mom, I was baking one day and it's funny because I almost blocked my memories out of my mind. And then all of a sudden, a memory came into my mind of me as a really, really young girl back in Zambia. And it dawned on me that my mom was a baker herself. And I remember that she had been making polvoron and pandesal, and she'd always bake in the kitchen all the time. And one of the things that she'd always asked me to do when I was a little girl was to wrap the individual polvoron. So I would take the little polvoron that she stamps and I would take a little tissue cutout and I would, you know, take the time to roll it in and then twist the ends and make every single polvoron look perfect. I realized that I had forgot all about this memory. I forgot all about this time in my life and I pushed away all those memories. The reason why this is really important and when it dawned on me is because as much as I have such a difficult relationship with my mom, it made me realize how much I'm actually like her after all. And so the very thing that I love today and that has given me all these creative outlets in my life is the very thing that connects me to her. And this is important because you may be in the same position now where, you know, you're looking at your relationship with your mom or your parents and you're having challenges with your relationship. I think for me, this was a reminder that our parents mean well. And it's made me realize that we always have to advocate for ourselves and stand up for who we are. And our parents might take a little longer to realize who we really are inside and appreciate that. But I encourage you all to continue to do that every day. And one day, just one day, either you will realize it or they will realize it, that as much as we all might seem like completely different individuals, at the end of the day, we're a lot more similar than we all think. Thank you for listening to my story.
Thank you so much, Rechie. It's just, I think that's the point of it all, right? I mean, sharing our stories just allows us to really get to know who we're telling these stories about. We learn a bit about ourselves too. So thank you so much for sharing that with me and sharing that with everybody else here as well. Wow, I mean, exactly. That's exactly the point. And, you know, that's exactly why we put this event together. You know, naturally, I like to make stories as well. And there is one story that I want to tell you, but I don't think it's the right time to tell you that story just yet. So we'll keep that for later. But the next person that's up is a super dear friend of mine, one of my best friends. And he actually didn't think he had a story when I first talked to him about this project that I was doing with the TITA Collective, that I had to tell him about, like, stories that he's told me that's affected me. So just knowing that friends that are out there, you do affect each other. And this dear friend of mine definitely does, and probably always will. And he's going to share a story again about family. If you don't know him, his name is Dan August Rigo. I'm just going to show on Spotify. Please follow him, August Rigo. And you don't even need me to say that, because he's dope. You will not be disappointed. He's such an amazing, talented person. I don't even have to go through his track list right now, because, between Music Soul Child, Justin Bieber, One Direction, BTS, Chris Brown, Kalani, his track record is pretty amazing. Nominated for Juno for Best R&B Record. This guy is just oozing talent, and he's just such a great person too. Well, so I just hit something. Ooh. Okay, so next up is my good friend August Rigo, and he has something special that I hope you guys enjoy as well, that I've been told before too. So Dan August Rigo, guys.
What's up? My name is August Rigo. I'm a singer-songwriter from Toronto. And I guess it's story time. So I want to tell you guys a story about my dad. And like every Filipino immigrant family story, I guess, my parents, both my mom and my dad, did everything they could to kind of make me feel like I had everything I ever needed. Everything I asked for, they did. They did everything they could to make it happen. So I played baseball. I played rep baseball. My dad was my coach, and then when I got to the higher levels of the leagues and he wasn't able to coach, he was just, my biggest support system. He used to take me to tournaments, whether it be 4-8 hours away. He would drive me there and be at every game. So I never had a brand new baseball glove. I always had, whether a hand-me-down from somebody. And then when I got older, I used my dad's old glove. So that glove started to get tattered during a tournament, and I needed a new glove. So, I might have been 12 or 13 at the time. And, the gloves are expensive, they were $60, $100. I don't know what they were at the time, but a decent one. So I guess I was practicing, or I was hanging out with the other teammates, and my dad was watching one of the other teams play baseball. And I was wondering, he sat there for an hour and a half, and he wasn't in the stands. He was actually on the grass, kind of not in the middle of the field, but kind of just right outside the fence. And he was just sitting, having just chain smoking, having a cigarette. And I saw him from a distance, and I was just like, oh, whatever, he's hanging out watching. Come to find out, my dad, as he was walking around, he saw a glove in the grass. And he didn't want to appear like he was stealing it. So he basically just sat on the glove for an hour and a half in the middle of the grass, waiting around to see if somebody was looking for a glove. And when the games cleared out, and nobody came to him to see if there was a new somebody, if they had left their glove there, that's how I got my new baseball glove. And, hey, that was it.
Thank you so much, man. Can you imagine sitting on a glove for well over an hour? Have you ever seen a baseball glove before? It doesn't make the best cushions. So when he told me that when we were growing up, it stuck with me. But again, it's just what our parents will do, for us, just to make us happier, or to make sure that, our goals are met, our interests are met too. So, Danny, I want to thank you for that, Ben. The next person up is another close friend of mine. But right before we do that, I just want to bring you guys to this painting that's behind me. Now, there's a video about this painting that just showed how it got made. And the reason why I'm posting this to you guys right now is because, again, to say thank you to the TITO Collective, to TAWA, to Bad Dog Theater, to everybody that's there. Because, again, I'm not a performer. I'm not a comedian by any means. I do like to write, and I do like to publish books every now and then, just so you know. And Evie that's there. Evie, bodies of water, guys. he's in the West Coast right now. But the reason why I wanted to bring this up too is because we're doing a fundraiser. So if you're in Toronto right now, the GTA, we have this painting that I painted. I haven't spray painted in a long time, so I was honored to just make something. And I love painting older people because they're just so wise. They're just so interesting. Like the wrinkles, the type of bone structure that they have. As an artist, that's just detail. That's all stories. That's every blink, every smile, every crevice, everything that's there. It's just, for me as an artist, it's so overwhelming. So I painted, maybe some people might think it's Apawangad, but it does, like a universal Lola, or universal Lola as besides used to say. So please check out this video. And if you want this, we're doing a fundraiser right now. We're going to do a whatever you think it's worth. Okay, just message me on Instagram, message the Collective or the TAWA Comedy Instagram page, and we would like to raise money for everybody that's in the TAWA Comedy Festival. So if you feel that this piece speaks to you, then you know what? I'll even throw that other one on the wall, one right beside it too. Okay, whatever you guys want. I just want to do my part. So please, Sean, can you just show the video of how it got made? And then please, we'll move on to the next person.
Tayo'y mga Pinoy, tayo'y hindi kano. Huwag kang mahihiya kung ang ilong mo ay pango.
I'm an F-I-L-I-P-I-N-O, F-I-L-I-P-I-N-O,
F-I-L-I, yeah, I am Dro, no intro, P-I-N-O, you don't know, yeah, I'm coming from the motherland, hot like P.I. Summerman, harder than the hollow of my mother's hand, understand, my swagger be New York, but my blood was brewed in QC, so chill with the brutal abusive views we choose to believe, children of the sun, you better rock it if you proud of who you are, or it's red on top of the blue, styling on the island, the story of a warrior, from the trouble to the struggle, and from reside of Gloria, we bringing you a sequel till our treatment is equal. This is for my people, my people. We trying to be some citizens. It's better for our kids.
Again, so please, I would like to do my part. So if you want to bid on that, just please message us on Instagram. The next speaker that we have right now. Oh, and a shout out to Jason Insight in New Jersey. Again, I was spreading out as much love as possible to see who would like to speak for us. Who would like to participate in this event, and he wasn't able to make it, but he shared that track with me. That's it's an American track from these MCs in New York, New Jersey. I just want to give a shout out for them. Thank you for letting us use it. And again, Jason Insight, thank you so much, sir. But our next person up is, again, from my past, just this guy's awesome. I wish I had got the three of you guys here, but they were part of a singing group called 360 back in the day. Again, Danny was part of that. Our other buddy, Sean, and PJ Navarro was our third friend that's part of that group too. He's doing some big things. If you ever follow him on Instagram, definitely check it out because it's definitely inspiring. He's a father, he's a chef, he's a health enthusiast. His talents just go over so many different arenas. And right now he's just really being a great ambassador for healthy living. And he's a general manager for an international franchise called Buffalo Wild Wings. If you've ever been there, head over to Mississauga. I mean, my boy PJ is there. He'll hook you up. You have to pay though, of course. You know that. But anyways, PJ, I love you, man. Thank you for sharing your story and being with us today. And he has a wonderful story to tell. He has a wonderful family. His wife Cleo, his sons. This guy just imbues positivity. So I just wanted to invite him out to speak right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, PJ Navarro.
Hey y'all, thanks for having me today. Thanks for tuning in. So the story I want to share with you guys is called She's So Honest. So funny enough, we all have this one cool thing in common. And that's our super honest tita. You know what I mean? So so I'm pretty sure you'll have at least, one tita baby, one tita Mila, a tita Marites, or tita Tess, whatever you call it, and the list goes on and on. But then, you either get that one that's really nice, and offers you things, gives you food, some hugs and sniff kisses and all that good stuff, and then you get the super honest ones. You know what I mean, right? So the ones that say, don't stay out too long, huh? You're gonna get dark outside and look ugly, or as soon as you walk into a fam jam, and the first person you see is honest tita. And the first thing that comes out of her mouth is, oh my God, ang taba mo. How did you get so big? Stop eating too much, my God. Funny enough to say, that was my mom. Let me give you an example. So first time, she met one of my friends from high school, he had acne issues. I get it, puberty. So as soon as I turn over and say, hey mom, you want to meet my friend G? We're gonna go work on some beats in the studio. Then out of nowhere, oh my God, what happened to your face? Oh my gosh, I was so embarrassed. I felt bad for my friend. I turned red. And then he turned over to me and said, it's totally okay. Like, I get it. And that kind of made me feel better. So it put me more in a comfortable spot. But man, my mom was honest, that's for sure. But at the end of the day, you got to love your mom, right? So about 2 years ago, I was probably in the worst condition in my life. I was about 270 pounds. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I had fatty liver disease. And on top of that, I was taking meds for high blood pressure. One day, my mom and I were watching the Raptors game. And my brother was in the room with me as well. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, my mom, she just looked up and down and said to me, BJ, ang taba mo, look at your stomach. It's coming out of your shirt. Usually I'm good at taking an honest beating from my mom when those words are being thrown at me. But this time, for some reason, it was different. It really hurt my feelings. And I know my brother, he looked at me and he saw that I was hurt too. But you know what? It made me stronger. It was my turning point that I decided to watch, what I was eating. I started working out. I even picked up a skipping rope and was introduced that from my friend. And I just started skipping and wanted to get healthy. And I was on a roll. Then early October, my phone rings at 5 a.m. And I hear my brother-in-law on the phone. Peach, mom is gone. For a moment, I lost it. I thought I couldn't do it anymore. I felt like giving up. But that didn't stop me. I kept hearing my mom's voice repeating those same words. And for whatever it was, it motivated me to keep going and to just keep killing it. I then started to do skipping challenges. I started intermittent fasting. I trained my body to do a 16-8 fast, 20-hour fast. Then I moved on to a 24-hour fast. And then I started implementing an OMAD diet, which is a 1 meal a day. And then I also incorporated a ketogenic diet. Man, I was fighting for this. I wanted to reach my goals so bad. 8 months after my mom's passing, I've lost over 100 pounds. My doctor had called me and told me that I reversed my type 2 diabetes, my fatty liver disease, my high blood pressure has gone down dramatically, I've even gotten a YouTube feature on the Jump Rope Dudes channel based on my journey. And man, does it feel amazing. So at the end of the day, if it wasn't for who we are, if it wasn't for my mom being the traditional honest Filipina, my life would have turned a different direction. So thank you, Mom. If it wasn't for you, who consistently was being honest with me, I just wanted to say thank you, and that now I know why. I love you more. Thanks, guys.
Yes, PJ, thank you so much, man. I'm really happy you shared that with us. I've known you for so long, and yeah, when you get older, you guys start to drift apart. But just seeing how far you've come and what you've gone through. Thank you again for sharing that with us. And I think again, very slightly different, but everybody does go through different trials and tribulations with their parents, and we each have a story. And again, thank you again, TAWA. Thank you again, Tita Collector, for letting us do this tonight. Next up again is our friend Rhian with another story similar, again, about our family. And thank you again, PJ, again so much. And Rhian, please take it away too.
I would wager that most of us born to immigrant parents in the late 70s and up to the early 90s can draw similarities with the memories that I have of my lolo. Socrates Garcia was born in the 30s, lived through Japanese and American occupation of the Philippines during World War II, had a boatload of kids, 9 to be exact, and became an immigrant so they could live in Canada and have the Canadian dream, as it were. Let me fire off a couple memories I have of my lolo. So he grew up in a rural area and liked to hunt a lot. So his need to live off the land and provide for his family was so important to him. So no matter where we lived in suburban Toronto, he kept chickens. And it's legal to do that now, but in the 80s and 90s, it was not. And no matter how many times the police were called on him, with every house we lived in, our backyard garage was the chicken coop. And I remember running around playing with baby chicks all day. He even had the occasional cockfight with his buddies. I remember him calling for my titos when they were in high school to kill and pluck a couple chickens so he could cook tinola for us. His tinola was bomb. And Lolo was hardworking and very resourceful too. He worked and eventually retired as the maintenance man for the Royal York Hotel in downtown Toronto. And you know the saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure? Well, my Lolo lived that. He used to bring things home from the hotel's discard piles and repurpose them and build them into something else, like our lechon rotisserie spit and all of our backyard seating, among other things, were made from materials that were headed to the landfill. And all of my high school uniform dress shirts were hand-me-downs from my titas and titos who got those shirts from hotel workers' old uniforms. He was also known for having a bit of a temper. I heard stories about him stabbing someone in his younger years out of revenge, but he was also fiercely protective of us, and he would feel no ways about setting someone straight if they so much as looked at one of his granddaughters sideways. No lie, though, I probably spoke all of 10 words to him in my lifetime, so I learned all these things about him, not from talking to him about it, but from observing him, from living with him, and from stories others would tell me about him. He was a man of very few words, and his love language was always making sure that we were fed and never hungry. And I understand that now. So rest in peace, Lolo.
Thank you again, Rhian. We're getting towards the end here, guys, and I just want to thank you again all for being here with us. We got a lot to share, and definitely, like the personal stories is what this is all about. And This person that's up next is I actually just met recently, and I really enjoyed her story when she told it to me. Her name's Sheilah Madonna Martel Salvador. She's born in the Philippines, Boya of Santa Mesa, and she's Alangpao on her mother's side. I hope I said that correctly. She currently is in Toronto, and she is a mature U of T graduate with a creative artwork and pieces that are deeply influenced by experiences of being a racialized woman. She has been featured in Minerva Literary Journal, and she has released Feel Ways, a Scarborough anthology. So she's a published author as well. Definitely thank you again for being here, Sheila. And please share with us as well. Thank you so much.
Hey guys, magandang gabi. And before I start, just wanted to thank everybody that's responsible, like Bad Dog Theater and the TITA collectives, for providing this platform for us to be together and just to stay close to home, to our community. So speaking of home, my story is about my mom, like most of us here tonight. So until a few years ago, my mother and I had a very volatile relationship. I always saw her as someone who was masungit, mahigpit, nakakatakot. I was 16 years old when we came to Canada, and needless to say, I had a very, very hard transition. We all did. I wanted to stay behind in the Philippines with my aunties that let their daughters talk to boys, and who was, that were allowed to drink Coke and Pepsi and ate at McDonald's. I wanted to stay behind so that I can become an actress and marry Robin Padilla, or if he's not available, a basketball star. So those were my plans, and I really resented my parents for taking me away and bringing me in this cold white country where I really had a hard time adjusting. So as soon as I was old enough, I left home and I stayed away from home. And it was easy because I thought that my mother hated me, and I thought I hated her too. But more importantly, I hated myself. So it was really not that easy to love me or get along with me. So we had that great divide between my family and I for a long time. So my mother, from what I knew about her, she's from Olongapo City, and she came from a big family. There was 7 siblings, and they lived in a very traditional bahay kubo. If you're not familiar with it, it's like the straw house, and it has like the poles, like the legs are really high, so you can see underneath the house. So she lived there with her 7 siblings. Her mother died when she was really young. And a few years later, her oldest brother moved to the United States to start his own family and a new life. So I didn't meet that oldest brother until like maybe a decade ago. The first time I met him was when he came to visit us in Canada, and he stayed with my family, and I hung out with him, and, we sat around, nagchismis. He talked about, he told us stories about the family, about the bad boy uncles, and all the love triangles. There's just as juicy as any K-drama. Those kinds of stories. We all have those stories about our families that makes us so proud and excited about, oh my God, this is our relatives. This is our familia. I had no idea. So, like I had an uncle that when my mom and dad eloped, and my uncle took my father aside and threatened him with apparently a gun. This seems extreme, but this is like a very Filipino bad boy thing. And he was just like, you better treat my sister right. So, these are the beautiful and, psychotic origin stories that we have. But there were so many beautiful stories that night. But I think that two stories that really struck out to me was, my uncle was saying that before he left the Philippines, my mother, every time he would go to work, my mother, who's the youngest, she would hide because he would say goodbye to her. So what she would do is hide from him. So he would look for her because he will not leave until he said goodbye to her. And sometimes, usually he would find her under the stairs or under the house and she's crying. So yeah, so that was the story, is that she would hide from him and she's always crying because she didn't want him to leave. And eventually he left permanently to the United States. And he also said that growing up, they kept chickens. And so my mother, I always thought that she was just maarte and maselan because she doesn't really like to eat too much food. It's always usually Chinese food or Filipino food. And she doesn't like chicken. But I realized that it was because, and she eventually told me that growing up, she was friends with the chickens. So it was really hard for her to eat chicken. And these stories I was really grateful for when my uncle told me, because it humanized my mother. I finally saw her as somebody beyond my strict and tough mother. I saw her as a child talking and playing with chickens. As somebody who suffered loss and trauma, who in her own ways, just, she had to learn the hard way. And it wasn't easy to be a parent. And we all just had to go through the hard things, So I was really grateful for this story because it helped me recover my love for my mother that has always been there, that has manifested and has been reciprocated in many different ways over the years. And every time I think about these stories about her, it reminds me, and it just makes me love her even more. And it just makes me proud. And despite of all the hard times that we had over the years, these are the stories that I look back to. And, as relationships go, she can still trigger me, but I remember these times and all the other times, and I've learned to be more calm, and we've learned to be more accepting of each other. And so basically, I think that for most of us who are so far away from home, these stories are all that we have right now. And I hope that when you get a chance to listen to stories from our elders, that you'll always listen, because this is how we stay close to home. And these are the stories of our lives and ourselves, and we get to learn so much about ourselves and our family that we never thought we would. So I hope that you keep telling stories and listening to stories. And again, thank you for allowing me to join this evening to share this story and listen to your stories. And maraming salamat.
Thank you so much, Sheila. And I think you're so true. Like, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And you're right. The stories is what we have right now. And I know sometimes a lot of us feel like we're being overlooked, but there's people that are out there that are sharing, that are doing it. So don't be afraid to share. And somebody that really taught me to do that is the next person that's going to speak right now. I used to go to watch him speak at Wellesley and Young. He would host a comedy event that's there. It was called Texas Comedy Massacre. His name's Xerxes Cortes, and he's just so funny and smart. I'm very much in awe of him. So when I asked him to do this and he said yes, I was just, totally just, it was just great. So thank you again, Xerxes, for participating. His name is Xerxes Cortes. I know on some of the flyers it had an S, but it is a Z at the end of his name. So I apologize for that. But up next is a good buddy, Xerxes Cortes. So thank you, Xerxes.
Oh, hi. Thank you. Thank you for letting me show up here, Eric. I'm always happy to do it. It looks like I'm going to do a phone review or something. It's a nice little setup I got. All right. So I'm going to talk about my Lolo. But before we get to that, I need to fill you in on like a backstory. My dad died when I was 5. Here's a good tip for aspiring comics. Any aspiring comics watching, that's like a great way to start a set. Really want to hit them with the dead dad stuff, like right from the jump. Audiences love it. That's why they start every Batman movie like that. So yes, my dad's dead, and my mom had to get a job doing like shift work so she could support me and my sister. So because of this, my Lolo and Lola ended up taking care of us for like a good chunk of the time. Well, in the beginning, it was mostly my Lola because my Lolo was also still working at a factory. He did decide to retire like a little early. It was around the time that he got run over by one of the trucks at the loading dock. I feel like that was like a pivotal moment for him, like career-wise. It was like, oh, I gotta be honest, I don't think this 9 to 5 grind is really for me. You know, like, oh, the rat race, get me out of here. Like literally, get me out. I'm pinned under a truck. Just to be clear, he bounced back from this very well. He had to have a couple of skin grafts and he used crutches for a little bit. But like after about a year or so, he was like back to his old self, like, except this time he had workers' comp and a parking permit. You really love that parking permit. Now, was this just a scam to get workers' comp and a parking permit? No, of course not. I'm 100% sure. Well, can't really be 100% sure. I'm like 87 to 90% sure it was not a hustle, which, I mean, you know, that's pretty good. To be fair, my Lolo loved a good hustle. If you're older, like I am, you might remember that McDonald's tried to get into the pizza game in like the late 80s, early 90s. They had like this thing where on Tuesdays, McDonald's turned into like a pizza buffet where you had 3 hours and you could eat as much pizza as humanly possible. The only rule that they had was like, you know, as is customary at buffets, you're not leaving with any leftover food. Like what happens at McDonald's, it stays at McDonald's. And so I'm going to say this is kind of where my Lolo and management did not quite see eye to eye. Like my Lolo's interpretation was, well, they just can't see you leaving with any food. So his solution to this was obviously to wear a full winter coat in the middle of June, sweating so hard, just keeping it on. And like when no one's looking, you just wrap up as many slices as you can and shove them into every pocket available. We would have pizza for days afterwards. It was the best. If my Lolo ever learned about cargo shorts, I would probably be eating McDonald's pizza right now. Like just going to the washroom, taping slices of pizza around your waist, like smuggling contraband. Anyways, so he just loved a good hustle. And he was always like this. Back when he was a teenager, he used to hug his mom. And while he was hugging her, he'd like go through her pockets. I'm guessing he was looking for money and not pizza slices, but you know, again, I can't be 100% sure about that. I never met my great Lola, so I don't know what she kept in her pockets. There was a story that my mom told me from when she was a kid. My Lolo was a charmer. You can see it runs in the family. And when he was like a younger man, I'm sure he was very guapo. And so, you know, getting married, having some kids, it didn't really slow him down like it does other people, you know? Like, I'll say he had like a lot of friends who were ladies who were, I don't know, let's say in addition to or extra to his marital affairs, if you know what I mean. He had a lot of love to give, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not condoning it. That's just kind of what it was. Anyways, I'm guessing at some point he realized that having both a family as well as like a bunch of mistresses, there's like a bit of a strain on the old cash flow. So he came up with like rock solid business plan. He would take the deed to his land And here's where it gets like a little complicated. So hopefully you can follow. And he was going to use it to gamble. Now, if you're thinking, well, that doesn't sound like a great plan. I mean, I guess congratulations, you're smarter than my Lolo. But I will say that what my Lolo lacked in smarts, he made up for with, I don't know, how do you say this? Like a total lack of scruples. Because plot twist, it wasn't the deed to his land that he gambled with. It was actually the deed to the land of his goody two-shoes brother. Oh, it was a classic switcheroo. What? Yes, I know it's poor storytelling. I should have mentioned he had a brother in the beginning. It's still like not really fair. I should have, you know what, when he was like picking his mom's wallets, the brother should have been like, don't do that. Anyways, his brother ended up having to move in with him and his family for like a while. My Lolo did eventually pay him back. I don't really know how. I don't think I want to know how. ... Our side of the family left the Philippines and moved to Canada. Who knows? Okay, I should probably wrap this up. This whole night, I'm kind of thinking about Back to the Future, and like the idea of, would I get along with my parents if I knew them like way back when? You know, I can say my Lolo definitely would have scammed me out of some money, like 100%. That one I can say for 100%. You know, at this point in his life, he was just kind of a self-serving guy, just the type of guy that was like kind of always looking out for numero uno, you know. But this isn't Back to the Future. I don't have a DeLorean or a flux capacitor. Like all I have, whoa, the light went out. Let me just fix this. There we go. Like all I have is like a chunk of time with this man that I called my Lolo. And like I said, he was always looking out for numero uno. But fortunately, in the time when I knew him, sometimes numero uno was me, or my sister, or my cousins. And that's pretty good. He did forget one of my cousins at the racetrack once, but I mean, we got him back. So that's good. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
I like the way he slides that in there. I like the way he slipped that in there, Xerxes. He just left somebody at the racetrack. What was a Woodbine? Oh my gosh. So guys, we're actually at the end of the event right now. And I haven't told my story yet to you. Now, when Aaliyah and I talked about this from the TITOS Collective, what big thing came up was I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine, Jaisa Sulit, who would have loved to have been here today. That's her book, Purpose and Paralysis. And we were just talking about, you know, different stories and then how much we share. And then we also started talking about super important Filipino thoughts. See how I snuck all those in there? And we were just talking about how much we would like to share. And it just brought me back to the story that my tita told me, hence the name when we came up with it. And I really want to share this story. And just like out of the blue, again, Ali and I talked about it. And then it was just like, oh, this is the perfect setting. But, you know, we're not comedians. But again, each one of us that's out there, we have a story to share. And I don't know if you've known the way this has been going so far, you know, towards that second half, it's really something that I learned about my mom. And again, she didn't tell me the story. It was actually my tita that told me the story. So I'd like to share it all with you guys. And I think it's a pretty good mango story, you know, and it's really about how my mom didn't share any mangoes with me until I was 12 years old. Okay. Until I went back to the Philippines, you know, all the way from 0 to 12, I'd never really tasted a Filipino mango before. And I always wondered why. Okay. So my tita actually told me the story why. And it made a lot of sense. But at the same time, it was just kind of remarkable. And this is a true story that I'm going to tell you right now. And I want to make sure you get this clear, because usually there's sometimes, you know, there's so many different types of Filipinos out there. You couldn't put 10 Filipinos in a line and they probably wouldn't look the same. But there are certain types of traits that come out, and some Filipinos enjoy the limelight and singing the karaoke and Other Filipinos are just super quiet and would rather just, lay in the cut and not really get to really be vocal. And that's my mom. My mom was very much a quiet person. And I always wondered about what she was like when she was growing up. Okay. So this story that I'm going to tell you right now really gave me some insight about who she was before I was born. Because obviously, nobody's lives start until babies are born, right? So come on. But anyways, so the story I'm going to tell you right now, again, my tita told me I got to stress it out for you, because when I told my mom I was going to tell the story, she was actually very, very angry that I was going to tell the story. So if you see my mom, just don't mention it. Well, she knows, but so in the Philippines, we're from this small town called Liloan. It's in the Visayas. It's called Southern Leyte, and Liloan is surrounded by lilos. So it's surrounded by whirlpools. And this happened to my mom a really long time ago. And this is really why, I didn't get mangoes until I was 12 years old. Okay. So you got to make sure you realize and recognize that. So in Liloan, there's this giant storm that was happening right now. Okay. So there's this giant storm, rain's going all over the place. And my mom gets a knock on the door. According to my tita, my mom gets a knock on the door. My mom answers it. And there's this farmer that's there. Okay. And he's freaking out. And he's like, "Are you the resident doctor that's here? I need a doctor right now." And at the time, my mom just finished school. So that made her the most qualified, I guess, in the whole town to be the doctor that's there. And she said, "No, I am not the resident doctor here. He's actually here." And the resident doctor goes for, services so many different towns in the area. And again, remember, this is like the 50s, 60s. So it's not like internet's readily available. And she's like, "Go find him. He should be in the town. Check the restaurants." And the farmer says, "Yeah, I did check the restaurants. He's there playing mahjong. He's not the most aware right now. So he told me to find you. He said, 'You're a good doctor and you have small hands. So I need your help right now.'" So I don't know if my mom did it because, she was intrigued or because it was just something fun to do that night during a storm. But she's like, "Sure, you need help. I'm going to go with you." So they get out, they go to a pambot. If you don't know what pambot is, it's the fishing boats. And she hops in and they head to the mainland. Again, remember, it's Liloan, so there's lilos all around. So the water is treacherous. Rain's falling all over the place. It's not the best scenario, not the safest scenario for her. So she gets out the pambot, she makes it to land, goes into the jungle. She goes into the jungle. She has no idea what's going on right now. She's just, one part excitement, other part scared, I assume. And she's in her early 20s when this is happening. So I guess she was just a bit more adventurous back then. And she finally gets to a nipa hut that's there. And the nipa hut, there's all these kids that are around. So there's 13 kids that are there. And she's like, "What's going on? What's the problem?" And then she finds out that the mom that's there is actually in labor. Okay. And there's a midwife that's there and they're helping out. And, my mom's like, "Oh my God, we're in the middle of the jungle right now. There's no hospital for kilometers away. What are we going to do?" So she's like, "Split second, we're just going to deal with this right now." So her and the midwife, they go through it. And then, they deliver this baby. It's a long delivery, but she delivers this baby in the middle of the jungle. And, it's a success. The midwife takes the baby. And my mom's like, "Okay, great. This is done." But something happens. This woman has a prolapsed uterus. So if you don't know what that is, for any kids out there, I teach elementary school. So I don't want to get too graphic about this, but essentially a prolapsed uterus is when it comes out. And she is just stumped right now. She's like, "What do I do? What do I do with this situation right now? We're in the middle of the jungle right now. There's no hospitals around here. The best thing to do would be to take you to a hospital. What do I do?" So she's like, "All right, we got to just make a quick decision." She goes to the husband and she goes to the midwife and she's like, "Okay, we need to act now. I'm just going to have to just put it back. I'm going to put it back and hopefully it stays." So she does that, washes her hands as best as she can. Again, they're in the middle of the jungle right now. She puts it back. It keeps coming out. She keeps putting it back. It keeps coming out. She doesn't know what to do. She decides, "Okay, you know what? I'm going to hold it here in place. I'm going to hold it here in place and just hope that it doesn't come out anymore." So she does that. She was told that she had small hands. So I guess it really came in handy this time. So she holds it in place and, minutes turn to half hours turn to hours. From what my tita told me, she was, and again, this is hearsay because I guess, she heard the story, but all the kids were coming by, wiping the sweat off her head. Some people are going underneath her, holding her hand up to make sure it stayed. And hours went by. Okay. It came to a point where she's just thinking about how long she's been doing this, and 4 hours went by. So she's thinking, I can't do this anymore. Can you imagine just 4 hours holding that up and the amount of strength that would take? And she decides, you know what, I gotta let go. So she does that. She lets go, and thankfully, God willing, it doesn't come out anymore. So she's relieved. She's tired. People were massaging her shoulders. People were wiping the sweat off her brow. They're all thankful at that moment. But all she kept thinking was like, oh God, thank Lord that this happened, that this is done. So she cleans up, the baby's safe. And, she says goodbye to the farmer. She says goodbye to the midwife. She says goodbye to the 13 kids. And she goes back home. Like the farmer takes her back to the Bambut, and she heads back to the island of Luloan. So next day, she gets a knock on the door. The storm's gone already. And there's a little kid that drops off, and she recognizes the kid that knocks on the door. And it's one of the 13 kids. And he drops off a bag of mangoes. Then eventually the next day after that, she gets another knock on the door. Who is it? Another kid. What does he have in his hand? Bag of mangoes. Okay. More days go by, weeks, months. She's the resident doctor there now. Well, what does she always get every couple of days to months? A bag of mangoes. So by the time she left and came to Toronto, she was sick of mangoes. So at the end of the day, she did a great thing, but I never got to try any mangoes until I was 12 years old. So that's my story about why I never got to try any mangoes until I was able to go back to the Philippines. I know my mom's pretty selfish, right? No, I'm just joking. My mom's awesome, and I love her for that. And yeah, that was a story that I thought was unbelievable, and I got to look at my mom in a new light after that. Again, some people shy away from the spotlight. Others will revel in it. And I'm glad I got to know that much more about my mom. So that's about wraps it up for tonight, guys. I'm glad you guys sat with us for this amount of time. For everybody that's out there, please don't stop telling your stories. It's important that we do. I'm an advocate of everybody telling the stories. We have Jace's here. We got Malaka. Wish she was supposed to speak today too, but Nastasia's, everybody that is writing stories out there, keep doing it, doing your art, being creative, sharing. We come together like this because we know we can pass it on. So again, thank you so much. And this isn't going to be the only night that we do this. Everybody that participated, thank you again. Everybody that's there, I would like to do a roll up for your names, but I'm overwhelmed by the fact that we finished this. And thank you again, Sean, to Tita Collective, Bad Dog Theater. Again, thanks for letting us do this. Utot!